Morning. Are you both on? No, Adrian's
Can you
not
hear
sure
me?
what. Ah, yes, there you are. Thank you both for joining me.
It's
Good
a
morning.
pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Got your mug of tea, very important there. Yeah. That's what's the weather like up there? Are you both up in Scotland at the moment?
Yeah, we're on different sides of the country. That I assume, Adrian, you're in Edinburgh, but I'm in Killearn, which is just on the edge of Loch Lomond, and actually within a mile of the West Highland Way. So it was quite nice. It's a bit overcast, but dry and reasonably warm.
Excellent. Excellent. Oh, well, yeah, I'm really um delighted that you've both joined me. Obviously you're both big figures in the world of running in so many ways. And I'm really interested in the West Highland Way and the history of the race. So I suppose really, I mean, Ian, I mean, you've you've got so many feathers in your cap. Was it a case of it was just time to give up one of them? Um, what was your thinking there?
Yes, it was. I think that was very much the thinking. I'd been speaking to Adrian and the others in the committee before this year's race about thinking it's probably time for me to step down. I've tried to step back a bit in a couple of the other things I'm doing. My day job at Lindsay's. I've dropped a day, so I'm off Wednesdays, which has been good, and I'm trying to just sort of step back a wee bit from that. But I think also recognizing that. I mean, in fact, I think we all recognise that we need fresh blood and we need to keep bringing in new ideas. And while Adrian's been around longer than I have, I think he absolutely gets the culture of it, which is important. The race sort of prides itself in having a real family feel and a strong culture, and it was
Mm,
very important that we don't lose that. So I'd see it as an evolution. I first got involved 2010 in the organising side after my predecessor, Dario Melaragni, passed away. And we sort of pieced things together at that time with the help of those who'd been involved for some time. And we've just tried to continue and evolve the race. And I'm sure it'll evolve from here.
well, yeah, because I mean, is it next year will be the 40th running, which is quite an achievement for a race, isn't it? An ultra race, especially in the recent climate.
Yeah, no, I think I
Um,
think I think that's right. I think that yeah, we believe that the West Highland Way race is the second oldest trail ultra marathon in the world after the Western States. And so it's got a fantastic pedigree and history. So I'm sure the 40th anniversary will be quite an
yeah,
event.
yeah. Are you gonna? Well, I suppose I should ask this of Adrian then. I mean, what are you planning anything? Any parties there, Adrian?
Whoa, I'm still just getting my feet under the table in some ways on this new role. I think like anything, the West Highland Way is a very successful race. It is oversubscribed every year, and we're just a bunch of volunteers who don't really give it a lot of publicity compared with a lot of the more, shall we say, professional commercial races. It's a lot of the interest is just by word of mouth and the experiences people have when they come and get involved in the race, be that as a runner, as a helper, as a support crew. Yeah. And I think like any business, Ian will do it in his business, other businesses will do it, other races will do it. Every so often you take a step back and say, okay, we were starting our business, if we were starting our race tomorrow, what would we do differently?
Mm,
And some things, then you look and think, okay, there's the ideas. What is feasible? Some of it you look at and think, oh, we can't do that. That's going to cost a fortune, and et cetera, et cetera. And you have a blank sheet of paper. Anything is possible, but you're just trying to maintain the culture while growing the event. And above all, just making sure, which has always been the ethos of any race, really, is just making sure everyone who takes part, whatever their role, has a good experience and goes
mm,
away thinking, wow, that was a great weekend. That's really all we're trying to do. It's very
yeah.
simple.
What do you think you've attributed that your successful sort of family atmosphere? I mean, how do you think that's come about, and how have you, I mean, have you nurtured it? Do you do anything consciously?
Um, shall I go on that one, Ian?
You
So,
go first, and I'll give you
okay.
my thoughts.
Um, when Dario Malorani was race director for 10 years, he was a great friend of all of us. He was really a slightly larger than life character, very bubbly sort of man. You know, you can just have a conversation with him. He'd come on the phone, and before you knew it, you'd been speaking to him for half an hour. You know, he's that sort of guy. But he engendered just this great family spirit with the race. And I
Mm,
think, and without really trying, he was just being himself, basically. He didn't set out to sort of um, make it some big sort of mega commercial operation. He just wanted everyone to have the same experience that he'd had with the race. And that sort of grew. And I think it's something that, you know, Ian and the group that have steered the race for the last 10 years or so have just tried to engender. And we hope that everyone who comes along on race weekend and even in the build up to the race throughout the year just gets a good feeling from it. And every country has their iconic races. Like California has Western States, Cornwall has its Arc of Attrition, which is growing well now. You know, Greece has its Spartathlon, South Africa has Comrades. If there's a
mm,
jewel in the crown in Scotland, it is the West Highland Way.
yeah.
Yeah,
Britain,
yeah.
even. I'll go as far as to say in Britain. That's open for challenge and discussion, but
Well, I'll happily chair any discussion on that.
Yeah, I would say, Katie, that the, the family bit of it is probably one of the aspects of my role that's taken a bit of work behind the scenes. And it's very hard to put your finger on what it means, but what I've thought it means is that this race is absolutely open to everybody, and everybody who wants to take part in any capacity will be very welcome. So we won't put up with cliques or some of the sort of things you sometimes see on social media. And I have got involved in the background to just stop all of that. And as far as I'm concerned, if anybody's a runner, wants to take part in this, or wants to volunteer, or wants to support crew, they're part of this family, and we make them welcome. And we've tried to nurture that throughout. And that kind of basic principle is try to sort of drive really what we've done. And the likes of the
Mm,
prize giving, where one of the things I really like, and it wasn't my idea, but it came in not long after I'd taken over, was to have the race winner present the last finisher with their goblet. And that type of thing everybody loves, because it just shows the
mm,
joined up nature of it. We had something a week or so ago, which really I thought in all my time here was one of the nicest things I've seen. We had a family over from Colorado. Tim Barr and his wife and son came over and ran the race, and Tim was really taken with it. And he went back to Colorado, got in touch with everybody from Colorado who'd run the West Highland Way race, and had them round a week back on Sunday to his house for a barbecue with
oh.
all their goblets. And I just love the fact we've got a West Highland Way family meeting in Colorado. That's the most fantastic
That
thing.
is, yeah, that's quite an achievement, isn't it? And I mean, it's quite something. I mean, I was just looking at the results. I mean, from the first finisher to the last, I mean, this year it was 34 hours. I mean, they've actually got to hang around for quite a long time, haven't they?
Yeah, we've structured it in such a way that the prize giving takes place on the Sunday at 12 o'clock immediately when the race finishes. And our prize giving, everybody who finishes gets called up for a goblet. It's a bit like a big graduation ceremony. Everyone gets called out. So by and large, I think we probably have everybody stays except maybe about 10 or 15 who need to get away. So you do have a massive filled hall with a great adrenaline charged atmosphere, people coming out. So it's just in fact, some respects, the people at the back end of the field get a much better finishing reception than those at the front, because the front there's nobody there, everybody's still out in the course apart from a few of
Yeah.
us, whereas those at the back, everybody's gathering for the prize giving, and it's lovely to see them get their credit as they come in
Yeah,
and finish.
that is great actually, because yeah, I mean we're used to crossing the finishing line, having a medal put around our necks, and then getting in the car and going.
Yeah.
So yes, that really dilutes the that finishing line feel, doesn't it? But what you're offering is yeah, that's a lovely aspect of it. Um, do you, I mean, have you got any in mind, any changes, Adrian, that you might implement? or are you going to sort of run with it first and then see?
Probably nothing. My wife always tells me I have far too many ideas and it's practical. I'll never get through them all in this lifetime, shall we say. Ian probably has the same sort of situation. Anyone who does what we do has an abundance of ideas. It's just a case of trying to figure out what fits in, what is practical, what is financially viable sometimes. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, yes, we have ideas, and other people on the committee, John and Helen and Sean and people will have ideas. It's just a case of looking what is feasible. Does it fit in with what we've been doing already? Is there the classic thing? What are the laws of unintended consequences if we change this? How is it going to affect everybody else? Because we've got such a successful event going at the moment. Yes, we could change things. We've been offered sponsorship. We have support from Ron Hill, who've been amazing over the years, and we've had offers of sponsorship. But we just feel if we took them on board, it would change the whole character of the race.
yeah,
Weird for
yeah,
a lot of people. Any professional race organizer listening to this will think, "Gosh, you're just nuts." But part of the success of the race is it is just volunteer led and
yeah,
not profit making.
yeah.
That's what people like in this day and age. There's a place for the professional races and people to have a big jamboree and pay a fortune for entries and have to travel half around the world to get, dare I say, points to enter another race. Um,
Yeah.
but there's also a whole bunch of people outside the commercial bubble who just want to go and have not low key, because it's a very professionally run race in our opinion, but
Yeah.
just an experience that is just that they can value far more than having to trek halfway around the world to an event. Yeah, it's very
Oh,
much a
that's interesting.
great scheme. Yeah.
So do you think so? So you're run on a non-profit basis, um, sort of consciously. So what do you donate any profit, or is there any profit?
I'll pass on to Ian for that one as the treasurer.
Yeah, we try and make sure we cover our costs, and we've done that quite successfully. But equally, we're very keen on being part of the communities that are on the West Highland Way, and I think that's something I've tried to develop over my time in the role. This kind of community feel. I think it's gone from an event that's been a bit undercover to one that the communities are embracing it. And a few years ago, you're probably aware, but when our close friend John Kinniston died, we fundraised to replace a bridge in the West Highland Way, and there's a plaque there, and I thought that was a really nice thing to do. And this year, we did a couple of things that the owners of the campsite at Benglass Farm, which is one of our checkpoints, have been really helpful. New owners want to encourage, didn't want any fee for using their ground, but they were fundraising for a defibrillator to be there because it's a bit out of the way, and we bought that for them, which we felt helps the whole West Highland Way community and everybody using it. And every year we do donate £10 per entry fee to the upkeep of the way. We give that to the organisation that runs the West Highland Way. And again, I think that's important. It's our people are out there, not just on race day, but during the time. So we try and do all that and be good community. Again, it's probably been part of the role that Adrian will find. You'll know from your other races, Adrian, but quite a bit is the stuff in the background. You get a letter of complaint. It's dealing with that properly, trying to make sure that we don't make the same errors the next year and we fit in well to the community that goes by. And there's always a lot of that. I think people who run the races probably don't see any of that bit, but if you'd any race director here, I'm sure they would be telling you the same thing. They're sort of trying to make sure you're good citizens and what you're bringing to there is enhancing rather than detracting.
Mm-hmm. Well, and are you? And I mean, I think it's lovely that the numbers are capped at 300. And is that a sort of going to be a continuing theme?
I guess that's one for me.
I suppose
Again,
so, yeah.
when you're taking the blank sheet of paper scenario of what's possible, I can't see that changing very much, to be honest. You look at it every year and you think, well, could we take a few more? You look at what other events do, and yes, some events, some of the more commercial events, are just trying to pack as many people as possible onto a certain trail on the weekend. Um, and people want to do that, that's fine, with the West Highland Way or any trail, whether that's Arc of Attrition, Lakeland 100, whatever, the nature of your course sometimes depicts what you can and can't do. Like we encourage, and it's part of the deal that you have to have a backup crew for the West Highland Way. Not everyone likes that, but our feedback is the majority of people do like it and like being a part of that. That having the backup crew is an essential part of what the race is. You look at Lakeland 100 that happened at the weekend, they don't have backup crews because I don't organise the race, but I imagine Mark Lathwaite, the organiser, looks at it and sort of thinks, do I want an extra few hundred cars driving around the Lakeland roads in the middle of summer causing chaos? And
No,
B, where can you park all those cars at a checkpoint?
very
So
restrictive.
you
Yeah.
have to look at the West Highland Way and think that there's only a few places you can park up a couple hundred cars at a checkpoint. So that's dictating a lot of your basic rules. And that'll be the same as any race in any country.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's,
And it's also sometimes dictated to by what uh, the authorities or you have a conversation with them, what numbers they feel are fair. Do they want sort of 10,000 people traipsing up the West Highland Way? And you think of the environmental damage that might do.
I
yeah.
was in the lakes for a holiday a couple of weeks ago, and there's some roads you couldn't get two cars past, let alone. There's a lot of narrow roads, so I can totally understand Mark not wanting anybody in the way.
No, logistics there are tricky, and I think it's such a hot topic for the Lake District in full stop, isn't it, at the moment? So
Yes.
are logistics a bit easier for the West Highland Way? Um,
I think I would add to what Adrian said. I think one of the things that makes it a bit easier for us is our start time. We start at 1 in the morning, so people are gathering for registration from 9 at night. That gives us access to spaces that are much quieter a Friday night. For example, we've got a local Tesco near the
mm,
start line, and they're very happy for us to use that, knowing that it's not interfering with their regular customer base. In fact, they see the benefits because people go in and buy things last minute. So that works. And we've then probably got from 1 till about 9 or 10 the next morning. You're on a trail that you're not interfering with anybody else, as long as we do things like make sure people stay quiet and past houses and B&Bs and things. And by the time the sort of regular traffic is about, the field's quite spread out. It doesn't mean there's no issues, because it does get very busy around about the halfway point, and just with regular tourist traffic and people heading
mm,
north and all the rest. And we always have to be cognizant of that. But it could be worse if we started at a different time. And if we started
yes,
at 6 in the morning, I think it would be very difficult there.
because it is a very popular trail in itself, isn't it, for people to challenge themselves to do it over, hike it over several days, don't they?
Yeah, it's busy and it's great. It's a great asset to Scotland. It brings a lot of tourists.
Mhm.
I live very close to it, so quite often just out a walk with the dog in different parts. And I think every second accent you hear is a foreign one, which is great. It's great for tourism, great for the country in general to show off some of the fantastic
Mm,
landscapes. So, and we're part of that. I think I really like the fact that we've always worked very closely with the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park and the other councils and so on who are involved in the way, and we try and make sure, as I said before, that we're good citizens with it.
yeah, yeah. How have you? I mean, it's been going for so long now, sort of over your tenure, and Adrian, you also. I mean, you've run it 15 times. How have you noticed any differences in the in just the what am I trying to say? Around running, around ultras, around people entering, um as
Gosh,
a as
how long have we got?
a,
Yeah, for those that don't know, I entered the Highland Way in 1990.
okay.
Worked that
So
out.
that
I
is
did my age way a bit. Yeah, probably some people
five
listening to this
years into its, yeah.
yes, probably some people listening to this weren't even born then. But I didn't make the start line I won't go into the reasons. I ran my first one in 1991, and I think I don't have the stats offhand, but I think there were about 25 entries who started, and we all basically knew each other or knew of each other, you know.
Mm.
And I think about 15 finished. And you could then, those days, you could do it unsupported or supported. And I did it unsupported, had drop bags at every checkpoint. Um, And it was great. It was just such a fabulous experience because there were walkers around, but it wasn't nearly as busy on the trail as it is now. So you
Mm.
really had the sense that you were just out in this wonderful, even though it goes close to a lot of communities and you're never far from a main road or the train line. Um, so you just feel you're
Oh, I'm sorry,
just
Adrian.
in,
You've
in a wilderness environment. Are we breaking
oh, we
up?
lost you there.
Yeah,
Yeah, we lost you
you
there.
froze a bit. Yeah, I mean,
How,
Katie, if maybe I come in
Mm.
at that, but I've been involved not quite as long as Adrian. My first year of involvement was 1998 when I ran it and didn't finish and realised just how naive I was. And I've started it 11 times, finished it 8 times, and
Wow.
but since 1998, there's only been 1 year I haven't been involved in some capacity or other. But even up till about when I took over as race director, we still didn't get many more than about 50. It was still ultra running was a bit of a niche thing, and it was
Yeah.
only at that time it all started to take off a bit. And once it started to take off, we saw a lot of the changes that I think the biggest changes in the equipment and the shoes and so on. Didn't have anything like race vests and all the nutritional stuff and all that kind of thing. I mean,
Mm.
the shoes are specifically trail designed. They continue to evolve all the time. Just massive differences in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think people, my view's always been what we've seen is people now train much better, I think, than they did even in my day. They know how to train for ultras. There's a lot more experience and knowledge, and we see that through the times. I was looking back at some old ones. My best year was 2007, and I think I might have been ninth that year with a time of just over 21 hours. You wouldn't make the top 30 now with that time, and that I think is just people have got better at
Yeah.
running them and knowing how to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of resources now, aren't there? And just experience, I suppose. It's um, there's a lot out there.
can you
Obviously,
hear me?
my
Can you hear me okay now?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I would endorse what Ian's saying. I think 20, 30 years ago, even when you speak to some of the top ultra runners of that sort of era, like Eleanor Robinson or Don Ritchie, they were just pioneers. They didn't really know what they were doing. In some ways, they were just trying to explore themselves and break their own sort of personal boundaries. And it's the same with even the mere mortals like me who were doing it alongside them in those days. And I think, as Ian says, over the years, there's just so much more expertise now. People now, with all the sports science and evolution over the last 20 years, which was just a fledgling sort of thing sort of 20, 30 years ago. Now there is just so much more knowledge out there to enable people not just to train better, but to recover better, which is any coach will tell you is just as important.
And the nutrition side as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Although
Mm.
I do feel in ultra marathons, it's one of these areas where nutrition, I'm just not sure we've made as much progress there as the other areas. I was keeping a very close eye on the Lakeland stuff at the weekend and following through, and a number of people who did complain about having nutritional problems, and I sympathise because I always found that hard. I don't know we have made great breakthroughs in what people need to fuel themselves for 100-mile runs on a hot day. It's probably the area that there's the most room for improvement, I would say.
Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? Because I suppose that it's almost more training yourself than, I mean, the nutrition is there and the science is there, but on the over the long stuff, the people have to train themselves to be able to consume it. And unfortunately, there's no way getting around that. However amazing a product is, if someone literally can't ingest it, it's you might as well have a Mars bar.
Yeah, Adrian maybe doesn't know this story. It's a bit of an aside, but 1 year, I think it might have been about mid 2005 or something. No, it must have been 2007. I was on the Sport Scotland board, and we had the institute, and one of the institute nutrition people approached me and said they were really interested in ultramarathon. Could they work with me doing the West Highland Way? And I was delighted because I'd always had problems with nutrition. So I worked the whole way through, and we talked through the whole training and all the plan and tried a few different things, but I'm not sure my race that year was any better. It just tried different things like using diet to get the right nutrients back in and all the rest, but it didn't really work. So we're all an experiment of one when it comes to these, I think.
I think that's the problem, isn't it? It's yeah, it's so personal to every individual. Yeah, someone needs to invent something that everyone can ingest without.
There's a couple of things I could add to that. I remember Gus Irvin, who won the race this year. I didn't chat to him post race, but he did a winter West Highland Way back in the turn of the year, and I chatted to him after that. It's on my Runners and Smilers blog. There's a shameless plug for my own blog there, runnersandSmilers.com. And I remember chatting to him about his nutrition, and he said, basically, you're problem solving on the run.
Mm,
And you're also, he said, a lot of mistake a lot of people make, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, is they go into a long race without having practiced that in long training runs.
mm,
The key to being successful and avoiding sort of gut problems, because he'd had gut problems in other events over the years, and we all have. Every ultra runner will tell you an absolute disaster where they've fallen apart and the gut hasn't worked, the whole digestive system has fallen to pieces, and it's just in his view that he trained his gut basically, or the whole system to take
mm.
on what he needed to take on in long training runs rather than waiting till you're in a race situation. Because a lot of people wait till a race situation and just stuff themselves with everything going, and it
Yeah.
just doesn't work. And you have to be able to take a step back during a long race and think, okay, I'm feeling this. That means I shouldn't be taking on anything for a little while because I'm just feeling absolutely full. But people just ignore those simple signals their body is telling them sometimes.
Yes, they follow a prescribed routine.
And dare I say it, the more commercial interests tell people this formula is that you should have a gel every 15 minutes, for God's sake. I mean, have you ever had the gel every 15 minutes doing a long race?
I wouldn't dream of doing that.
I'm just going to park that one there. How many
No,
drills will
yes,
you get through in 20, 25, 30 hours? And sort of when is
I,
it going to sort of come to a
I
point where you
can't.
just,
No, I can't
what
imagine the
happened? No?
consequences.
I always remember a lovely story about a chap who was a Scottish 24-hour marathon champion, Steve Mason, and Steve won the race that Adrian organised at Perth. I think it was in 2008, and then was selected for the British team. And he turned up, the British team, everybody did all their nutrition, and Steve turned up with 24 donuts, one an hour. That was his nutritional plan. And he did okay, I think.
Well, if it
Uh,
works, it works. This is it.
he
I think
ran
one of the
just,
best tips I've ever heard is from someone who says if you've got problems eating when you're running, take something to eat every time you run, even if it's just 2 miles. Take a jelly baby and just try and ingest that during that 2 miles. Because I think the main problem is that if you start running without eating, your stomach closes down, and it's like, yeah, right, we're busy. All energy is going to the legs, all blood flow and all that stuff, and actually you just got to keep the stomach working so that it's able to accept food as you get it. And that piece of advice I thought was brilliant. Well, I mean, I could ask you both about your worst uh, your worst experiences on the West Highland Way. Have you got any terrible, not necessarily nutritional problems, but what are your best and worst experiences, each of you, on your races? Ian?
I think my best's quite easy. I think my best was my finish in the year I set my best time. I just seemed to get a new lease of life at Kinlochleven, and I, I was always quite structured about my times, and I did the last section from Kinlochleven to the finish in 3 hours 19. I'd have struggled to do that if I was just out a training run on my own, but I just felt so good and so fresh, and I was passing people all the time. And
Oh,
at
wow.
that time, you were allowed a support runner at that stage, but it probably still would be actually. And and he can he couldn't keep up with me and had to drop back. I was just going so well. So that was the best. The worst was definitely for me in the 2008 race, where having built up and had quite a good training and having finished something like 6 years successively before, I just had nothing from the start and dropped out very early at Rowerdennan, and it took me quite a bit of time to get over that. I was so disappointed, and I had two other DNFs. The first year I tried it, and the last year, but they were both different. There were different reasons. The first year I was just totally underprepared, and the last year I was already involved in the organising, and my head was much more on what was happening at the finish. So I didn't have any real impact from that. But the 2008 one probably took me about 3 months to get over. I found it devastating. And but these things can happen. I still don't know. Did I go off too fast or too much adrenaline? Was it just one of these days? You never really know, but it happened.
Yeah, that's the trouble with being an organic being.
Yeah, and you look back and you think, should have toughed it out, should have had a wee sleep, should have just walked a bit, should have just have reset targets. You go through all of that, but you make a decision at the time based on how you're feeling, and then regret it afterwards. I think is probably what you do.
Yes, it's easy in hindsight to think, oh, I could have pushed on or I could have done that, but actually at the time you clearly can't. What is the cutoff? What is the total time for the race, start to finish?
It's 35 hours, but there's also cut-offs at various checkpoints all the way up, which are not linear. So it's 5 hours to the first checkpoint at Balmaha. I think it's 15 and a half to Ochtertyre Farm, which is considered to be the halfway point. So you have to reach each of them as well. I think the general view is if people get beyond Ochtertyre Farm, it becomes a bit easier as long as they just keep moving forward. But we didn't want it to be a walking race, so we wanted people to have to run. And that first bit, I don't think you could get to Balmaha in 5 hours just walking. You'd have to be a really quick walker to do that, I think.
Okay. Sorry, Adrian, I digressed anyway. Tell me what your best experience was on the West Highland Way.
So many. Probably need to write a book about it at some point. And that idea was sitting on a list somewhere, list. But probably my most satisfying race was when I did, I think, my second best time. It may sound a bit strange, but of all the 15 I've done, that particular year, I was serious about it, but not that serious because I was running 24-hour races at the time and trying to make the British team. And I had to, I got selected for the British team in the autumn, and I had to do a race to prove fitness sometime over the summer. So I chose the West Highland Way. And of course, you don't want to really give it 200% because you will compromise what you want to do in the autumn. So I figured out a schedule I wanted to do just to get under 20 hours for the race that year. And I realized after I did, and I'd planned not to wear my watch, but I started with my watch, and then we got to the first checkpoint. I just threw it at my checkpoint, threw it at my crew, and said, "I don't need this watch. I got my schedule in my head. I know the effort I want to do is going to get me under 20 hours." And I just told my crew, "I just don't want you to say anything about how I'm doing. Just either smile at me or do whatever you do to make sure I'm going to get that goal." And I think I didn't have a watch and look at it all day, and every checkpoint I got to, my crew didn't say anything. And then I think when I got to Kinloch-Leven, I looked at Alan Young, who's helped me that year, and I said, "How's it going, Alan?" And he just sort of said, "Well, let's just say you can't afford to hang about." Which was just this sort of spur I needed just to keep pressing on over the last section. And I got under 20 hours with about 10 minutes to spare. So that was like it's a perfect pacing race. No watch, no nothing, just going by feel.
Wow. That's
My
impressive.
worst, which was also probably one of my most satisfying races, was the last one I did. Ian probably remembers this. Wind forward a few years, and I'm getting my bus pass by then. And just before Rowerdennan, about 26 miles in, I took a bad tumble on a tree root. And I thought, okay, this is it. This is going to be interesting. But the checkpoint's 2 miles ahead. I'll get to the checkpoint. see how I'm doing. I could walk, but I couldn't run. It was painful to run. I thought this might just wear off. Anyway, long story short, I got to the checkpoint and I was okay. I could walk fine. So I had to commit to going the long stage up Loch Lomond, which is about 17 miles before you see your crew again at the top of the loch. Um, and I was basically just power hiking. I couldn't, every time I tried to run, my hip was just sort of so sore. So long story short, that year it was a 26-mile run and a 70-mile power hike. And at one point, I was chasing the cutoffs, actually. It was a
Yeah.
different sort of mindset from
Wow.
being sort of near the sharp end of the race,
Yes.
15, 20 years before, to just being very humbling, just sort of chasing the cutoffs at the back. And I made it in with an hour to spare at the final end. It was a long day, but I think that was my most emotional finish because it was just so,
You had to work the hardest for it.
yeah,
Mm.
basically, yeah.
Oh, I think that, I mean, I think it's a testament to you that you didn't pull out, actually, and that you did keep going. I think many people who are used to being at the sharp end would say, oh, well, I'm going to pull because it's my next race is, I need to look at it.
To be fair, by the age I was when I did that race, I wasn't at the sharp end. I was very much mid-pack by then.
Okay, well, yeah, but still,
But
no, I think that gives you a very good perspective.
yeah, and
Um,
it sort of helps to reinforce the whole family feeling around the way. I
mm,
had probably much more support from people after the race, knowing when word got out of what had happened to me and how I did it, than I had when I run it well. Yeah. So it was
mm,
very, very
mm,
encouraging. Yeah. But that typifies everything because you look at the West Highland, well, at any race, like as we mentioned, the West Highland Way in Scotland is there to be enjoyed by anybody. Anybody. Ian will tell you this, but the people he sees, if you're an outdoor sort of person in Scotland, much as you mar the north of England, you take on the Pennine Way. In Cornwall, you take on the southwest coast path. In Wales, it's the Pembrokeshire path. In Scotland, if you're an outdoor person, at some point in your life, you will walk the West Highland Way, or in our case,
mm,
run the West Highland Way. So it's such an iconic thing. And yes, there's some people who are fit enough and train hard enough they can do it regularly. But for a lot of people, doing the West Highland Way or doing the Pennine Way, it's one of the hardest things they'll ever do in their lives. They'll have this opportunity where they get to a level of fitness and they think, yes, really like to have a go at the West Highland Way, and you talk to them and you see them at some of the training grounds, you see what they're putting out on their social media, and they're on this huge journey with family and friends just to have this amazing goal of just finish this West Highland
mm,
Way.
mm,
And that's the sort of ethos of it, really. It's just it's a credible challenge that is there for anyone to embrace. As I think it's on the website history, we don't make any claims that it's the toughest or it's the most scenic or it's this and that and everything. It is just an iconic challenge just to be embraced and enjoyed, and it is
mm.
achievable by anyone with a love of the outdoors who can put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you think, what do you think of the sort of recent rise of media updates? And I mean, I know you've got the sport ident tracking, but do you think what's your opinion of daily reels and updates and whatnot from the races themselves? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think either something you might take on or not bothered about?
Do you want to say anything, Ian, or do you want me to pitch
Yeah,
in on that one?
I think it is a good idea. We've
Yeah.
evolved the race with that. When we started off, it was all manual timing, and probably the
Mm,
field sizes allowed that to be the case. But we then moved to the timing at the checkpoints with the sport ident and Martin's team, who's still involved. And a couple of years ago, we moved to the trackers as well, so everybody does carry a tracker. And what we found is that I think it enhances the race. I think the technology is developed and is there, and it's astonishing how the interest there is in people and their runners and families. I had one year uh, a lady from New Zealand email me to thank me for the. Wasn't long after we'd introduced the checkpoint timing. She said she was able to follow her brother from New Zealand and see how he was doing. And you think that's
yeah.
lovely. We wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. And I think it's just it's just progress, isn't it? The one I do struggle to get my head around, and it's when people panic because they can't record all of their run on their watch. Like certainly when I did it, no, you just used an ordinary watch with a stopwatch, and you knew the checkpoint times, and you could take your splits from that, and that all worked fine. The idea of needing to get the Strava full 95 miles, and if the battery life, so I do find a bit odd. But again, it's the way people have gone. It's become an essential piece of kit to have this on, and it's just the way things have evolved, haven't they?
It is an interesting one. There is an element of, I suppose it's being able to go back and being able to view it, being able to view that 95, 100 miles, whatever it is, on your screen. It's almost like proof that you did it, when obviously the proof is in the race itself. But if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. And sadly, it's a phrase that everyone seems to live and die by. But do you do social media updates? During the race?
We do. It's
do that for you.
We've got it's actually my wife does that. Sandra does the kind of social media thing, so she does the updates, takes some films at checkpoints. I think again, Adrian, you feel we could develop that and do more with it. And this year we brought in a professional photographer to do a short film, which is terrific.
I saw that. Yeah, it's lovely.
It's really good. It really showcases the race well, and it could always do more. But we have, I think, again, and probably consistent with a lot of the things we've said, it's evolved over time in terms of what we've done and tried to put out more information to people. I think the one thing I'd probably, disappointed is the wrong word, because I'm really pleased the way the race has all evolved in my time. But the one thing I would have liked to have seen, I'd have liked to have seen a faster ladies' time. The ladies' course record was Lucy Colquhoun in 2007, when I was still running, not organising. Nobody's even really come close to it since then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think it shows two things. It shows, one, what a fantastic time it was by Lucy and what a great run. But we probably aren't attracting the very top British female runners. It's been a bit different the male side, and we're not attracting them to the race. And I would have liked to have seen, I think there's probably a 15-hour ladies' time there for the right lady coming up in the right condition, but we've not been close to that. Don't know what you think, Adrian, about that
one. Yes, one thing that those of us that know Lucy know that Lucy was a special runner anyway, and a special person anyway. People may not be aware she was also one of the few British runners who's won CCC as well. She was on a real purple patch at the time she set the record. She was one of the best, not just one of the best ultra runners in Britain, but was going to Europe and beating the top French and Spanish people at the time too. So that says it all. It was a very good record set by an exceptional runner. It's probably down to something we could do a bit more work on to try and attract runners, and we do have a course record fee. There is last few years we've had £1,500 on offer to anyone breaking the course record.
Really?
And again, you probably didn't know that. It's probably
no.
As well. We announce it and it's on the website, but we probably need to shout a bit more about that to try and attract some better runners, because we're well aware that there is, especially for a lot of the top British runners, will go to races where they can get prize money. Races in Europe or whatever. A lot of the top runners have sponsors, and the sponsors dictate in some ways their race program for the year. So, and going to West Highland Way probably doesn't figure in that. So it'll have to be someone who just sort of thinks, looks at the West Highland Way and think, yes, that is a challenge I could take. I could have a go at that. And there are British runners out there, certainly, male and female, who could have a go at the record. The men's record is a very good one. It has to be a very good male runner.
So what are the records currently for both?
Off the top of my head, Rob Sinclair's record is 13 hours 41, 42.
Yeah,
is that right?
13:41, yeah.
Lucy's is 17 hours 21.
I think it's 17:16, Lucy.
17:16, sorry. No, 16,
yeah.
17:16.
Yeah.
So that even looking at that gap's a bit wider between the men's and women's record than you would probably expect. I mean, I always look for about a 10% gap in endurance running, and that's bigger than 10%. So which is why I think the ladies' record is more
Mm.
beatable than the men's. But you get the right athlete on the day and see.
Yeah. I mean, simply by its very nature of being such a popular trail, I mean, I don't imagine it's that technical. Is it? I mean, I'm trying to think of reasons that perhaps women haven't stepped up to the mark, and wondering why perhaps it's not, not attracted, that record hasn't been blasted.
It's not particularly technical. There's a more technical section for about 5 miles at about the 35-mile point. There's along the loch side is more technical. That in fact, somebody I noticed locally, a walker fell off there into the loch last week, which was the first time I've ever heard that. Adrian, it made me pleased. I've handed over to you because I've done without somebody falling in the loch. But anyway,
that's the risk assessment.
yes. But so that's a technical bit, and there's a couple of big climbs in the last 25 miles, but they're just big climbs. There's nothing technical about them. There's no using your hands. It's just ups and downs. So and I think most people who have done a number of ultras would generally say, I always remember Andy Cole saying it's a very runnable ultra marathon was his view. And I think that's probably right.
Yeah. Oh, well, yes, it'd be interesting to see, because I mean, obviously, it's something I'm always following up and interested in is the female race, and what we can do to make it more equal on the starting line, really.
Yeah, that's been an interesting issue, because I think my view's always been this race is absolutely about equality in the overall sense. Everybody is welcome, regardless of who they are. And I mean, it's for Adrian and the new team taking forward to decide how they do that. But I've never been in favour of having a sort of, say, 50% of the places are for women and 50% are for men. We do have a ballot, and the ballot, as you would expect, ends up producing a field which is pretty much the same as the applications, and that's round about 25% female is the field. But I've just felt that it goes against the culture of the race, open to everybody. If you start saying you've actually got a better chance of getting in this race if you're female than if you have if you're male, I don't think that's right. But we treat everybody the same when they're there, and that to me is equality. It's like I think the bigger issue is how do you get more females who are wanting to run 100 milers. That's probably the bigger problem, and I don't think skewing the places is the answer to that. But I don't think equally as a sport we've necessarily got the answer yet to that, how we get more people.
No, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. Yes, it's encouraging women to the start line, not making it, as you say, changing your figures. It's how we enable them to get there themselves. Yeah, definitely.
I could just come in on that. I mean, I know you run ultra themselves, and yourselves and your colleagues have done some articles on sort of women's participation and encouraging it, which is great. Being a bit of a stat geek, Ian, I've done some stats on this just in the UK and globally, and if you look at 10Ks, half marathons, you can get a pretty good equality mix, men and women. Marathon, you can get some races that are very good mix of men and women. Getting towards 50K and then up to 50 miles, it's slightly skewed towards men. When you go beyond 50 miles, 100K, the ratio is very much more the 75-25 male female. And that's just not our race. That you look at Lakeland race, you look at spine races, you look at UTMB or Western States. Some years there's an even bigger ratio of men to women in those races. So it's not just a local problem, it's a global issue of do females actually want to run 100 miles, number one? And if they do, how can that be encouraged? And yes, what are the sort of pitfalls for that? Because they can do it for sure. maybe it's just a lifestyle thing. They just don't want to, or they try to do the training and figure with their whole life set up. No, I just can't do 100-mile training at the moment. They have to sort of wait and pick the time when they've got a year. So yes, I can handle 100-mile training this year.
I think, Katie, the whole issue of equality in running is a really interesting one, and
Yeah.
I felt, not just wearing my West Highland Way hat, but wearing previously my Scottish athletics hat and my UK athletics one. I think in endurance running, it's been great to see the explosion of numbers and the fact that people get out doing it. That's been a real plus. But it is a very white middle class sport, and I think we've a big challenge to try and change that. And certainly when I was at Scottish Athletics, the Jog Scotland programme did some quite detailed work here. And I was surprised by how difficult it was and the barriers there were to participation for example, Muslim women who culturally aren't expected to do that. And you'd some examples of jog groups where the women who wanted to go and run couldn't let their husband know they were doing that just because of the culture that they were in. And so I think sometimes you see the discussions around this and they're maybe a bit superficial, but there are real challenges with how we develop and into a sport, a sport that should be one everyone can enjoy because it's relatively light and equipment needs. I mean, running shoes are expensive, I get that, but compared to some of the other sports, it's not quite as bad. And I think there's a challenge for us all there, and we're part of that challenge, and I haven't got the answers, but I think it'd be an interesting one to see how that evolves.
Yeah. Well, as you say, it's a work in progress across the board, but it's an interesting one. Yeah, how we go forward, I think personally, I think for me, I think one of the biggest things I would like to see happen is allowing women to feel enabled to do it, whether it's through giving them the tools to feel confident traveling through the mountains or just even getting there. I think that's a lot of it is that societal, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. And actually, yeah, you can. I think even just that simple mindset could change a lot.
I think it is changing. I mean, there are groups, I can't speak for the rest of England, but in Scotland, you've got the Girls on Hills up in Glencoe, Fort William area, who are doing a lot of good work to encourage people, girls onto the hills and make them feel safe, with navigation forces and things. And also people like Debbie Consani and Karen Nichols who are in Glasgow, they're Wild Heart Runners. And not just focused on women, but they give a lot of importance to making women feel comfortable going out into the hills and doing a lot of good work to make them feel more confident in doing that. So there's a lot of good things going on, but it's, as you say, it's a work in progress. Yeah.
No. I'd just like to circle back briefly. You mentioned earlier about your committee. It's unusual for a race to have a committee as well as a race director. How did that come about, and how do you get stuff done?
I think it's probably one of the challenges we have. I mean, we speak about the committee, but I think we've all had our roles, and committee probably doesn't really represent the way we operate. We don't all sit round and have votes on issues or anything. We've tended to know the bits that we do. For the last number of years, I as race director have tended to look after the field and the runners. I've looked after the money side because that's my background and I do that anyway. And some of our kind of key suppliers I'll liaise with, and that's been my bit. Adrian's been very much involved in the merchandising, the overall history of the race, and the sort of, I suppose, the official, as the senior qualified official, the kind of making sure the race complies with that. We've got a volunteer team, we've got so on. So we've not got that. But I think it's one of the things looking forward, and probably why I felt this was quite a good time to step down too. I think the next phase of the evolution of the race is probably putting a bit more of a structure and in place in the governance aspects of it as things move on and as we change. And I think that's just the next phase, as well as the whole succession bit. So I mean, that's very much over to Adrian, John, Helen, Sean, and so on to bring that through. But I think that probably will be the next bit. We do talk. We probably, if I'm being honest, talk about the committee when it suits us to talk about the committee. But we do all just go on and make our decisions anyway.
Yes, I did suddenly. I had this sort of image that, oh gosh, do they have like monthly meetings or something?
Not really. In some ways, it's probably a strength and a weakness of the structure of the race. Um, we've got a very dedicated small group who've been organizing the race for years and can just get on and do it. If the race happened tomorrow, you know it would work. But there's also, Ian and I have talked about this year on a few occasions. There's a lovely saying that nobody knows what I do till I'm not there to do it.
Yes.
And if we're guilty of anything, the West Highland Way is guilty of that. We've all got our own little roles to play, but if one of us wasn't here tomorrow, the people left would have probably a lot of pieces to pick up.
Mm.
Because a lot of it's in my head, a lot of it's in Ian's head, a lot of it's in John Helen's head. Yes, looking at sort of how the race is structured and having a bit more, dare I say, formal governance or more informal governance. So there's perhaps a better structure there, but without compromising the volunteer and the non-profit aspect of the race.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can't think of any other sort of race that has that sort of support. I mean, if you like, I mean, most race directors kind of do everything themselves, except on race day where they've got people that they've gathered in and to help them. So I can see that being quite beneficial if you've got certain roles and certain people to do them.
It is, and the quality of the people has been outstanding, and I think that to me, across all the areas I work, the quality of the people in this voluntary role is as high as anywhere, and I felt we really saw that last year when, for the first time ever, we really had to think on our feet on the day. There was unfortunately a fatal accident on the 82 last year, and that left the road being closed for 6 hours, which didn't affect our runners, but did affect our support crews because that's the main route that they would go.
Right.
So it meant a number of changes. Things have to be communicated well. Your race people are stretched in these to see, and I thought we came through it really, really well because we had good people who understand it's all about the runners and the athletes, and decisions are made against that backdrop, and it actually was handled all fine, always handled pretty well. So yeah, there's no question about the quality. It's only if, I think, as time goes on, you get into an environment people are expecting you to have a bit more sort of formal governance structure around that, and that may well be the next the sort of evolution again of where the race goes with it. And also gives us a chance to bring in maybe some new thoughts and some new people and ideas who can help take that forward.
Mm. Well, it's been fascinating. Thank you so much. Adrian, any last thoughts on next year's race? Anything you want to share? I mean, apart
It
from
is the 40th anniversary. Yeah, I have a lot of ideas going forward. I must put in a plug. The entries will open on November the 1st. That
November
will
the
come around very
1st.
quickly. People are starting to plan next year already. So
Yeah.
please pencil in the date of June the 20th, 2026, I believe, Ian, isn't it? Yeah. Put that on
Yes.
your calendar as
Yes.
a go-to race for next year. And entries open on November the 1st. There is no mad rush on November the 1st because entries are open for 1 month. That won't change. And you can enter throughout the month. It's not a first come, first served, but if, as always happens, I mean, every year Ian has said to me, well, maybe this is the year people won't enter our race, but that hasn't happened yet. So yes, we always have to have a ballot. We get more than 300 applications. We had over 500 this year. So the interest is there. So you have the whole month to enter, and then we have to go through the ballot. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget that £1,500 course record lure for it.
Yeah, but that's open to only a very select bunch of people, and the race is far more than those people wanting to run at the sharp end. and try and collect £1,500. In some ways, the fact that no one, not the fact that no one has really tried to go for the record. I think if the record is broken, it will happen in spite of itself rather than anyone chasing £1,500, is my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
Because it's just the way the race is structured, not being commercial. You've got to want to do the West Highland Way because you love the West Highland Way, and the whole idea appeals to you anyway, with or without any monetary
Yes.
reward.
Yes. No, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Well, I wish you the very best with it, Adrian.
If I can just give one little story as to how the race has evolved,
Yeah.
because people like those stories. It's a possible blog post here called, I think, 8 Red Phone Boxes to Fort William. Ian knows this story. The first race I ran and the first few races, if you think back to 1991, very few people had mobile phones. There was no internet. There was nothing like that. The whole race was run. Imagine a 100-mile race these days, and we talked about the instant gratification of going online and seeing a live stream of this and that. How the race was recorded was there was someone in mission control in Fort William, in the sports centre in Fort William, and the checkpoints were all set up near red phone boxes on the route. Those who know the route will be able to picture them in their mind. And by the Rawaden Hotel. There's a checkbox, there's a phone box by the Inveron and Inn, just after Bridge of Orkney, and then King's House Hotel at Glencoe, and then Kinlochleven. And every checkpoint chief, well, there weren't checkpoint chiefs, there was just one person or two people manning a checkpoint in those days, had their little slot every hour to phone mission control in Fort William with a list of who had been through with their checkpoint and at what time. And there's a chap
wow.
in Fort William with a master sheet on his table and entering it all in with little tick boxes. Because in any race like this, even back then in 1980s, 1990s, as it is today, the biggest challenge any race organizer has is, where is everybody? Do we know where everybody is? Are they safe? Are they well? Have they gone off? It has happened. People have gone off route by a few miles.
Right. Gosh.
That's another episode of stories. So if you think back how ultra running has evolved, ultra trail running, it's evolved from sort of pens and paper and red phone boxes and having to phone that to the state-of-the-art satellite communications that we have now, so that we know where anybody is at any one point in time.
And that's probably one of the biggest differences, isn't it, from the start to now? It's and it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's life has to evolve. Yeah, otherwise, if you take it to its nth degree of sort of having simplicity, you're going back to living in the woods and sitting around campfires. Which is fine, but we live in a modern world. We live in a...
Yes, and we've got the new sport of dot watching, new national sport.
There's a balance to be struck.
As always, as always. Well, thank you both, Adrian and Ian. I'm really grateful for you joining me this morning. And best of luck with next year's race, Adrian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.